So here we have the review of the Royal Enfield Himalayan. Now we've really put this bike through its paces the last few days. Started out here in Basque Country, taking some awesome mountain roads, but it's been wet over this last weekend, so we've taken muddy trails, mountain tops, you name it. We've actually taken this bike as many places as we could, and it's done really well. Now it's only 411cc, knocks out 24.5 horsepower. Doesn't sound like a lot, and when you ride it, it isn't really. But it's got a bit of a torquey engine at the bottom, and through the rev range you get a surge of power which allows you to go through the gears and keep it rolling. Now it's an air-cooled engine with a small little oil cooler on the front here, but we've had no problems with the bike overheating. It seems to do really well in hot conditions. Now talking about torque, it's got 32 newton meters of torque. Again, not a huge amount, but just definitely enough off-road to keep you moving, get over any obstacles that you come across, and really have a great time. And this bike is exactly what it's all about, because you can hit these trails and it takes them with ease on this bike, because it's kind of like lightweight, 191 kilos. Okay, it's not the lightest bike, but for a road bike, an adventure bike, it's pretty lightweight, and I found it really easy to maneuver, get myself into tricky situations and still be able to get them out, and it's done really well. Now first gear is really low on this bike. I think that's really designed for obstacles, trail riding, that kind of thing. But then when we go to second gear, there's quite a jump between first and second. Trail riding in second gear sometimes can be a little bit more difficult, and first gear on the road is really low. So those two gears, first to second, I would prefer them to be a little bit closer, but the rest of the gears are spaced really quite adequately. Interesting, it's only a 5-speed, so on the freeway, maximum speed we've been able to get out of this bike is really between 120 and 130 kilometers an hour. I mean, it's adequate on the freeway, but it's not going to blow you away. But when it's doing that, the engine makes quite a lot of noise. The noise that comes out of the back of this exhaust system is actually pretty good. I do enjoy the noise, but the engine's actually quite noisy. It's a little rattly. You know, it's a long stroke, a single cylinder 4-stroke, which does have a bit of a rattle, but there's not a lot of vibration. It's just like the noise that comes from the engine. So the best bit about this bike is its ability to go off on the trails. It's got a nice big skinny front tyre, a big 21-inch 90 by 90 front tyre, and that just cuts through everything. And at the rear it's a 120/90 17-inch rear tyre. Again, quite skinny and just what you need for the off-road. Now on the street, it's been really just fine. At the same time, you can't corner as aggressively as what you probably would do with a bigger bike with a wider tyre, because you really just don't have the width of the tyre. But overall, it's been just adequate through the canyons and through the mountains. We've had no problems. Braking system, it's only got a twin pot front brake. I found that that's probably the weakest part of the bike. I mean, it's okay, it's adequate, but you definitely need to use front and rear, and sometimes a bit of engine braking. Talking about the rear brake, really good. No problems with the rear brake, good feel back through the foot, good braking system, no problems at all there, and it's been really good on the street and on the dirt. Now it comes with ABS, which comes in, locks up the rear. You can really feel that judder. We've been in some really tricky conditions over the last few days, in rain, in mud, and the ABS system seems to work just fine. They've got a big seat here, nice and comfy. My cameraman Alex has been on the back at times. He's had no problems. Some nice big grab rails for the passenger. When you don't have a passenger, you can put your big bag here and secure your bag nice and tightly. But with it being an off-road bike and being so good off-road, I'd like to see the seat just go further up the tank and give you a bit more of a cushioning protection, especially in the front of your groin here, because I've bashed my nuts on the tank a few times. So I'd like to see that in this model in the future. Foot pegs come with a removable rubber mount, but you can easily take those off if you're going to do a load of off-roading. I'd really recommend that anyway, because you have more grip with your feet and your boots. You've got some crash bars here at the front, not an engine protector, but more of like a gas tank protector. I've not really seen a system like this before, but you can bet your life if you fell over on a load of rocks in the middle of nowhere, these are going to come in really, really handy. Now you've got a big skid plate on the bottom, really handy again for off-road. We've taken this all over the place on some rocky terrain, muddy terrain, and the skid plate's been fantastic. Big long exhaust system that wraps right underneath the bike, but with it being tall and having good ground clearance, we've had no problems with the exhaust touching off-road, so no problems there. Suspension, pretty decent setup as standard, but it comes with no adjustment whatsoever and just a conventional front fork. But actually, I have to say, off-road has been no problems. Really enjoyed the bike off-road actually. That's where it comes into its strengths. It's a really great off-road bike. Display, nothing is digital, it's all analog, easy to read. You've got miles per hour and kilometers, a rev counter, fuel gauge, and actually has a digital compass which tells you which direction you're going. I didn't really need to use that on this trails, but I guess if you're in the Himalayas in the middle of nowhere, that might just come in useful. Mirrors, they've been okay. Objects in the mirror have been easy to see, no problems there whatsoever. You've got a screen here, it's non-adjustable, but I've had a peek on my visor and the wind's going over my head. It's not really pulling my head back, so the screen does work. And those rainy conditions as well that we've been in, it has provided with some protection. It comes with a centre stand and a side stand. The side stand I've actually found quite tricky at times to get into the right position. Sometimes it's a little bit too high, sometimes it falls down quite easily, but the centre stand is really robust. Fuel tank, we've got a pretty decent sized fuel tank here, 15 litres. It does pretty well on miles per gallon actually, because we've only put like a drop of fuel in and we've been riding it for 3 days, so that's definitely a good sign. Riding position, really comfortable. I've had no problems with fatigue or anything like that. And then the colourways for this bike, you've got this one in black, or the total opposite in white. And I think that this bike would really suit inexperienced riders, people who are looking into the dual sport adventure market and not too sure if it's for them, or for riders who just don't really have too much experience on the trails and there's no way that you want to take a big heavy motorcycle. We might as well take something like this, much cheaper, much easier to ride, very lightweight, low power, and it's easy on the trails, absolutely no problem. So overall, what you're going to get from the Royal Enfield Himalayan is something that's robust, able to go places, easy to ride. Okay, it's not going to rip your arms off with horsepower, but that's not what this bike is about. It's a bike that can go all over the place, take a few knocks, and you're going to be able to work on it and put it back together, because it's quite a simple bike that's simply made. It definitely gets our thumbs up, because this is an adventure bike that doesn't cost the earth. Start again, sorry. I didn't know what I was going to call it. I was going to say, should I call it snow?